I found this YouTube channel the other day, and it was this video. It was like how League of Legends became unkillable, and it was really good. This was actually a super good video. I loved it. I didn't know much about League of Legends. I was a console gamer, so League really didn't have much of an impact on me for a long time. But I know how big it is. But the same guy, like literally the day after I watched this video, came out with this one. But Overwatch shouldn't be dying. What went wrong? And I'm interested because it doesn't actually feel like Overwatch is dying. I feel like it's actually sustained, if not going up. Like, this isn't what a dying game looks like. Like, this is literally textbook even. And this obviously, like, Twitch viewership isn't everything, right? But, like, Twitch viewership is one of the things people always love to dog on Overwatch for. I'm like, oh my god, it's dying. It's literally consistent. Straight up sustained, if not slightly upwards curve. And don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. It's got some issues, but the game's also kind of in a boring spot at the moment, where like we don't really have a lot, and everyone's just waiting for Season 9. So, I don't totally agree with that at the moment. It's all quick play enjoyers. Yeah, but quick play is actually more fun than comp, because comp sucks right now. If comp becomes better, not saying it, you know, we don't know. It could end up not being. But like, let's say it becomes better. Wouldn't that, if anything, just make it better overall? You know what I mean? So, I'm interested, though, to see an outside perspective, because don't forget me wrong, I'm a biased Overwatch player, right? Like, I play Overwatch, so I'm going to be biased. Let's see what the perspective looks like from someone outside of our community or outside of our game.
Remember when the first Overwatch came out? How about Overwatch 2?
What the f, dude? Come on.
Overwatch 1.
Okay. We're off to a bad start. It had bad server problems the first day. First couple days. We all know. It was bad. It was awful. And we all had the famous streamer queue. Do you know what the famous streamer queue was? We changed our BattleNet location from NA to Asia and signed in through Asia. So our BattleNet went through Asia and then it came back to NA.
Was beloved.
Yes, and they were heavily DDoSed. They were heavily DDoSed.
Loved from the start, receiving high praise from players everywhere. But the sequel has received nothing but criticism, being review bombed to the lowest rated game on Steam. What's weird though is the games are practically the same, with Overwatch 2 actually fixing many of the issues that plagued the original. Yet players with thousands of hours in the game are leaving. Despite being a great game with millions of dollars behind it, Blizzard is killing their most popular franchise.
I don't think that's true. I think we already hit the floor. We've already hit the floor twice. We hit the floor once in Overwatch 1, and we've already hit the floor in Overwatch 2. Like we hit the floor already. We've already been there.
To understand what went wrong, we have to jump back to
The floor? Okay, the floor was somewhere around Season 4. Lifeweaver was boring. They stopped doing drops. Communication fell off the planet. They stopped talking to us for a while. It felt like we were back in Overwatch 1. Then the announcement came that PvE was canceled. If you're one of those people that go, well, technically, shut the f*** up. It was canceled. That was the floor. Real talk. That was the floor. Since then, there's been little W's that have come up. Small ones, small ones, small ones, small ones. I would say, if anything, we're kind of trending back upwards, at least like the game being better, right? But unfortunately, though, is that going to break people's bias and give them the game another shot? I don't know if that'll happen, so we'll see.
The 2000s, back to when Team Fortress 2 was the king of hero shooters. Overwatch may have been the first of its kind, but TF2 was the inspiration. From gameplay to cool maps and unique cast of characters, Overwatch basically took the TF2 formula
Strong, man.
and sprinkled in some League
That
of
hero
Legends.
select screen.
I mean, even the Overwatch character trailers can be traced back to TF2, with Valve creating iconic characters, each with their own distinct identity and personality. People loved these guys, and how could you not? Their short films were gold.
I hurt people. Boink! I'm a force of nature. Bonk!
Although Overwatch didn't lean into humor as much as Team Fortress, these trailers were epic. The game just presented this world that felt so real and unique, with characters you understood and stories that deserved feature-length films. I mean, it's hard creating iconic characters. Now make 32 of them. On top of all that, Overwatch delivered some of the best moments in gaming. When you and your friends could devise a strategy, some combination of ultimates,
r/Overwatch,
wipe the other team and take that W. Yet nothing came close to that feeling. And all this excitement led to Overwatch selling over 50 million copies, despite being an online shooter with no campaign. The popularity and reception made Overwatch the game of the year. But the game wasn't without its problems. It suffered from poor balancing and power creep.
What's the date on this?
Some characters like Brigitte released in such a broken state that the entire game suddenly revolved around her, often being called the GOAT's meta.
Here for the Outlaws.
From Grands to Bronze, the game suffered from these imbalances. And if you played alone, you better get comfortable playing a healer or tank, because most people would just insta-lock their favorite character, with no plans of working as a team. The side with even a hint of cohesion would usually win, simply by just
Overwatch 1, though.
having the right characters, making solo queuing more dependent on chance than on skill. But with time, the developers addressed and resolved these.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, Jesus Christ. Shield Bash cooldown increased from 5 to 6. Rally maximum armor reduced from 150 to 100. Shield Bash increased from 6 to 7. Now knocks down and get knocked down by other charging targets, Reinhardt and Doomfist. Shield health reduced from 600 to 500. Shield Bash can no longer travel or stun targets through barrier. It was from May to December you could bash through barriers. Damage reduced from 50 to 5.
Addressed and resolved.
Rally armor now has a maximum duration of 30 seconds. Get reworked. Some positive and negative changes. Direct nerfs as follows. Self-healing from Inspire is now halved. Barrier shield health reduced from 500 to 200. Shield Bash stun duration reduced from 0.9 to 0.75. Rally ultimate increased by 10%. Repair pack armor overheal reduced from 75 armor to 50. Repair pack HPS decreased from 60 to 55. Repair pack no longer grants an additional armor health pool. Barrier shield regeneration rate reduced from 100 to 85. Barrier shield cooldown when destroyed increased from 3 to 5. Face health reduced from 200 to 150. Inspire total healing decreased from 130 to 90. Healing reduced from 21 to 15 health per second. By the way, during all of this, all the low rank players, all the bronze through plat players were screaming that Brig is fine.
Reasonable level.
She was fine. Brig is fine. No! Oh man.
After an unbelievable amount of nerfs. The developers then introduced role queue, which allowed players to pick a role they wanted before they even got in the game, eliminating the conflict of role cohesion. It reduced a bit of creativity, but was ultimately a huge improvement for the game's health. Overwatch 1 had its issues, don't get me wrong, but players stuck through it because they just loved the game. Overwatch was a monumental achievement. From its gameplay to esports, everything just worked. The future was bright for Overwatch and Blizzard. So
no, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. No offense. This guy actually makes really, really good videos. But if you were telling me that 2018, 2019, 2020 Overwatch, the future looked bright, I would say it looked bright when they announced Overwatch 2 for the first 6 to 8 months. Then it set in that, we're getting nothing for a while.
To the future, thinking about how they could turn Overwatch into a massive franchise, something to rival Warcraft. There were huge plans for what was to come, plans that would ultimately destroy what Blizzard had spent years building. The game meant to continue the legacy, and fans were blown away by what they saw. A whole campaign set in the Overwatch universe. People couldn't believe it. Overwatch 1 had previously dabbled with story content in the form of archive missions, but these were short, few, and only available in a limited period of time. But here, Blizzard was showing something else entirely. Co-op mission ability upgrades, skill trees, new cutscenes, new characters, new master story, and so much more. Not only was this exciting for hardcore competitive fans, this was perfect for that casual audience that Overwatch attracted. A campaign to play with friends, with characters we knew and loved, broadening that appeal of Overwatch beyond the shooter genre into a casual and co-op space. The potential was unparalleled, and Overwatch 2 seemed like the beginning of something huge. But it needed to be this way, because fans were about to enter the season of drought. Since Overwatch released in 2016, every year brought brand new heroes in multiple maps. Each hero had their own lore, exciting trailer, and it seemed like there was always something to talk about. But after Overwatch 2 was announced in November 2019, content dried up. There was only one new hero in 2020.
There it is. Yeah,
that was
this is what I meant
Nothing else
before.
was released for the rest of Overwatch 1's lifespan. For 2.5 years, players received practically nothing. There were no new maps, outside of a handful of deathmatch maps, and no new heroes. Maybe a skin every few months, but content dried up. But there was good reason for this. Or so
But Streamer, we had loot boxes and we got things for free. Streamer, we got all... Streamer! Never send me back to that time period. Never. I'll do anything.
Players thought. The developers were focused exclusively on Overwatch 2, directing all of their attention on what they had promised. We were happy to wander the desert and wait for our promised campaign. So the hype slowly began to wane, and players endured. Overwatch was practically dead from a development standpoint, and players were desperate for anything new, anything to talk about. Dedicated content creators had gradually decreasing views, and some moved on entirely. Nonetheless, many players stuck around, enticed by the promise of tomorrow.
Oh
More was coming. They just had to wait.
Not
and after
the bird,
2.5 years
he's
of waiting,
gone.
we finally got our hands on Overwatch 2. Real quick, before I talk about the bad, let's start with the good. The gameplay loop had been overhauled to be faster paced and more fun. Blizzard removed one of the tank roles, making each team 5 players instead of 6, and nearly every character received some rework, with the tanks feeling more powerful and impactful than ever before.
Yeah, that was nice. I liked when that happened.
Not to mention the game mode Assault was removed entirely, a notorious map which by design led to unbalanced one-sided matches and was, thank goodness, replaced by a far more enjoyable game mode Push. But players realized that something was off. Those story missions that everyone was so excited about were nowhere to be seen. It turns out fans still had to wait another year before they would be added. Blizzard assured players it was on the way, but it was just going to take a little bit longer.
Oh no,
So after
I
waiting
remember that.
2.5 years of no content, Overwatch 2 was essentially a glorified update. It was great content for players, but they were expecting more from this sequel.
Literally, they themselves so badly. They promised the world and delivered what should have been expected. They promised the world and delivered Rhode Island. Yeah, no, no. Let's be honest with ourselves. Like, truly, they promised the world, right? Like, they never were going to be able to live up to all the hype of what they promised, but it doesn't make it any better.
Most of what was added and changed was
because you got to remember when all that stuff was hyped up and really sent to the moon, they were having the. You remember the issues back in 2019? You know what I mean? The Hong Kong stuff. Like, we're trying to get, people were trying to forget a lot of things. Like, they're...
for the better, except perhaps one thing. The game was fundamentally changed from premium to free-to-play. Blizzard saw...
Which still was good. To this day, I still say that was good.
The success of their competitors like Apex, Valorant, Fortnite, and they realized Overwatch was under-monetized.
We want more money.
The first game was developed during the rise of free-to-play, so it retained a more old-style monetization model, selling copies for $40 a pop. But they realized they could make way more money from a free-to-play model, maximizing their player base and placing in-game content behind a paywall. So Overwatch 2 changed their model to better match the status quo of the industry. Limited time
The Watchpoint pack wasn't bad, but it was so confusing to the average player that it still causes problems to this day. When people talk about like, oh, I paid for my PvE. No, you didn't. Wasn't in that. But why did they charge for a bundle to pre-order a free game,
Status quo of the
I understand why they did it. I know why they did it. They farmed and they wanted a revenue boost before the game came out.
Industry. Limited time skins, a battle pass, a premium currency, the whole 9 yards.
And they had to shut down Overwatch 1, and they needed a way to shut down Overwatch 1's buying the game. Well, also, you know what I mean? It was a weird period where they were shutting down buying Overwatch 1 copies because we were going into free-to-play Overwatch 2. So they're like, okay, how do we make sure that people from May of 2022 get to October 2022, still play Overwatch 1, and then transfer over to Overwatch 2. So they were like, okay, we can still let them buy the game, but we'll include it in a pack, so we'll get some stuff for the new game too, try to make it more enticing.
And fans were not happy.
Activision, come on, man. Put more effort into these things or drop the prices a little bit.
Even though it was technically a new game,
Yeah, that BAP skin was awful.
it didn't feel like it. With no story content, Blizzard had just updated Overwatch 1 and slapped a new number on it. The game did add new cosmetics like mythic skins, but paying for them felt so jarring for fans who used to get all these skins for free. We're habitual creatures, and getting Overwatch players to purchase skins was an uphill battle. Not to mention they were absurdly priced, with a single skin costing upwards of...
Yeah, this was before they did the in-game credits thing, which was a big dub, but I was on this train too. I was on the, you guys are selling old skins for $10. Like, you guys are, this is too much. You guys are farming way too hard. Tone it down.
$20. Players missed loot boxes. As crazy as that sounds, players found buying skins unnatural, and the price was set far too high. But that's just where the problems begin. The monetization changed how we experience the game, and for the worse. Only 13 of the 35 heroes are available for new players, and to unlock characters, you have
That's a little not true. That's a little.
to purchase the battle pass.
So those are like quote unquote the starter heroes while you're going through quick play, but by the time you unlocked ranked, you should have all of the original cast of Overwatch 1. I think, well, because there's challenges quote unquote to unlock like the Overwatch 2 heroes. I don't know if Sojourn's included technically, but while you're playing your 50 wins of quick play to unlock your whole roster of Overwatch 1 heroes, you can also be completing the challenges for Junker Queen, Kiri, Sojourn. Wait, Junker Queen, Kiri, and Sojourn are only 10 wins each? Okay, so you're going to get those by the time you get through your quick play games. Then like you have like the Ilari, whatnot, Ramatra. You can be completing those challenges while you're going through, right? Like, yeah, you don't get them right off the bat. That's not, like the point I'm trying to make is that's not totally true. Like, yeah, it is at the very, very, very beginning, but I don't actually think it's a bad thing because typically if you're a new player, and I say this going to like Valorant or let's say I went to play League. If I have 100 options of characters, I got no clue who I'm going to play. Not a clue, right? You might seem that it's like, oh, things are good. Like, oh, I got to have a lot of choice. But sometimes too much choices is bad. So by limiting a little bit, it gives people a chance to pick certain things that they might like and experiment a little bit and learn.
Why is this a problem? Well, unlike every other hero-based game, Overwatch is balanced around swapping and coordination.
Yeah, that's
certain
real.
heroes counter other heroes, so it's common to make several character swaps during a single game. So having to purchase heroes inherently made Overwatch pay to win.
So, okay, since this video came out a few days ago, yeah, you're right. I haven't watched SVB's podcast, but apparently Jared came out and talked about it and talked about how this is actually something they're looking into. I'm paraphrasing, so chat, you correct me here, but from what I read and saw online, it looks like they're trying to make it so that you don't have to pay for heroes anymore in the future. Like, they don't want them to be the battle pass anymore. They want people to just have access. And they're planning to make heroes free at the launch of them again. Like, they won't be behind a paywall anymore, right? That is their goal. Who knows when that's going to happen. But yeah. Anyways.
At least in some aspect. So the community was pissed. The game they loved was being corrupted, along with the fact that there was still no campaign or PvE content. So they found themselves back at the same point they were 2+ years ago, trusting Blizzard to deliver on their promise. They didn't. During one developer livestream, it was casually announced that the team
can't deliver on that original vision.
They had to scrap much of what they had promised. Skill trees, long-term progression, almost everything PvE, so much of what was promised.
Wait, did he say it was leaked?
It was casually announced that the team
can't deliver on that original vision.
They had to scrap much of what they had promised. Skill trees, long-term progression, almost everything PvE, so much of what was promised was gone.
What that means, we won't be delivering that dedicated hero mode with talent trees, that long-term power progression. Those things just aren't in our plans anymore.
What replaced it was much smaller campaigns similar to the archive missions from the first game. But this time, you had to pay.
Then what is the plans then?
Despite spending 4 years on the project, Blizzard was scrapping the biggest features they had hyped in 2019.
We went through 3 years of... Oh, it's me! Uh-oh. Overwatch 1. We're not even gonna count 2019, even though 2019 they'd already kind of shifted away. Literally, we played the most dead, non-existent, left-alone game.
This was the final straw. Blizzard defaulted on their loan of promises, and players were pulling out.
Same shirt? This one's way lighter. Shut the f*** up.
Players were pulling out. Dedicated fans with thousands of hours put the game down.
It's pretty much the nail in the coffin for me when it comes to Overwatch. I'm done with it, man.
All of that waiting was for nothing. At this point, it didn't matter how fun the game was or what PvE turned out to be, because the damage had been done to consumers' perception.
It's not the
of
lighting.
game. Blizzard just got people's hopes up to then crush them after years of waiting. But why did all this happen?
The same lighting, chat. It's the same lighting.
Blizzard has billions of dollars to produce games and had a much larger Overwatch dev team than they did before. Yet they couldn't make a campaign in 4 years. I mean, they literally have the stories and the cast of characters already designed. Most of the pre-production was done. They just needed to execute. Sadly though, it didn't come down to capacity, it came down to willingness and studio conflict. Overwatch 1 came from a different time in gaming, before Blizzard was only focused on maximizing profit. I mean, despite terrible reception and almost a decade of memes,
Do you guys not have phones? Yeah.
Diablo Immortal was making over $1 million a day.
Yeah, okay. Really quick, you would be very surprised, because if you look at like Twitter, Reddit, hell, even TikTok comments, not TikTok videos, but like comments, like low effort stuff, you would think that like every game and everything in the world like is terrible. Nobody actually buys it. No one actually does all these things. You know, who the hell would ever want to play that? And then like the truth is they farm. Hundreds of thousands or millions of people that play these games or buy these cosmetics or buy certain things because they like them and they enjoy them. There's always a whale. It's not really whales. It's typically older adults. It's people that have disposable incomes that don't want to go on the internet and bitch at people and complain and you know, talk about stuff. It's people that work 9 to 5s or whatever jobs they're working. They want to get home from work. They want to sit down. They want to play their video game. That's what they want to do. And if they want to buy something in their video game, they're totally cool with that, because realistically, video gaming is one of the least expensive hobbies. And I say that as someone who really, my friend group in like high school / college was like the athletic, football, hockey, baseball, going out to the bar and drinking every night crowd. And most of my friends were very well off. Like they had parents that were very well off and had a lot of money. I couldn't go with them sometimes because I didn't have the money. Sometimes I'd go and we'd pregame at their house or whatever, and they would have the alcohol and they'd, you know, do whatever. But going out in a major city, $10 a drink, $15 to cover, $20 cover, you're spending $100 a night easily. Uber there and back, whatnot. You spend $100 and you go out Friday and Saturday night, you're out $200 that weekend. What's $200 in video games? A couple cosmetics, couple whole games, and that's not something you buy every weekend. Like you do that once a month or once every couple months. You gotta realize, you know, it's not actually the majority of people. They're actually totally fine with it. Which, you know, say what you want about that, I guess, but yeah. One of those things you gotta keep in mind.
The original development team wanted to invest in a massive game, but this clashed with Blizzard's new perspective on revenue.
The anonymous source says the cancellation was 1,000% an upper management executive issue.
It just didn't make sense to invest so much in PvP.
Enjoy your YouTube and Twitch videos.
They can make way more money investing in PvP. There was other factors at play disrupting development, like the pandemic and Blizzard lawsuits, but ultimately it came down to developers trying to create a proper game, fighting with executives who just wanted to print money. Ironically, if the developers held back on
I don't know why they showed Jeff for that, because I guarantee Jeff was not one of those people.
Focused on developing content for Overwatch 1, and then announced Overwatch 2 as an overhaul to PvP.
We all know who it was. We all know. Everybody knows now, right?
With no story content, Overwatch 2 would have fared far better. We would have less content for sure, but the perception and trust towards Overwatch would still be intact. For a company, that is more valuable than any story mission or piece of content. Trust. 95% of consumers' purchases are emotional. There's some rational decisions involved, but the final decision usually comes down to how you feel. So as the perception of Overwatch got worse and worse, it turned people away. Even though the game...
What is this chart? I mean, I haven't checked, I guess, in the last week, but When I've looked at Steam charts recently, it's actually, other than the very first day, it's actually been trending upwards. So where did they see this?
Worse and worse, it turned people away. Even though the gameplay loop is still fantastic.
Looks my will to
brand's
live when
perception
playing
and the feelings
Overwatch.
Players
associated
playing right now? Is it players playing right now? Because depending on what time of day it is, it could be, because it drops really hard. It's actually big in Asia, but when it goes to like Asia's at sleep, it drops a ton.
people away.
So
Even
depending on
though
what
the
time I
gameplay
guess it was
loop is
taken?
still fantastic. The brand's perception and the feelings associated are what people think of, which taints all aspects of Overwatch. That's why a game that's technically
Now,
great.
one more time on that last piece.
Even though the gameplay loop is still fantastic, the brand's perception and the feelings associated
true.
are what people think of, which
That's
taints
very true.
all aspects of Overwatch. That's why a game that's technically great is dying and loathed by the gaming community. Borrowed trust that wasn't fulfilled. Players don't hate this game. Most of them love Overwatch. They love the characters and crunchy gameplay, but they hate how Blizzard has handled the game. And that
True.
notoriety has gone far beyond into the wider gaming community. Overwatch is now synonymous with poor management, greedy practices, and broken promises. A game that shouldn't be dying, but is. Thanks everyone
I
who
say that
stuck
last
to the
part, though.
end. For anyone that doesn't know, we like to pick an indie game to highlight at the end of each.
It's all things in 15 months. I don't know if I agree with the last part. I wouldn't say dying. I say it's, if anything, sustained. Hold up. Let me go Steam charts. Disregard, obviously, the big start, their big swing at the beginning. Because, like, you know, this is when it first came out, people getting on, whatever. August 31st. So this is the end. So it came out on August 10th. So at the end of August, 33,000. And then the whole way through, it's about sustained. And then today we're at, what, 30,000 right now at this current moment? And normally it's actually nighttime. So about 17,000 are playing right now, but the peak's always around when it's peak hours in Asia. Asia regions, it's pretty big. But in NA, most people are still on Battle.net. So I don't know if I'd say this is dying. I'd say this is pretty sustained. You know? Like, if you look right here, the start of the new season, December 6th, 38,000. Back here is about 2 weeks after the start of the season. So, is it a perfect one-to-one? No. When was the last season that started before December 6th? It's like October, right? Hang on, 38,000, start of a new season. And then right here, when Maga was dropped at BlizzCon, right here, 38,000 again. I don't know if I'd say dying. And don't forget, majority of players are Battle.net, right? Majority of Overwatch players, especially in NA, are going to be Battle.net players. So, I don't know if I would say dying per se. But it is interesting to always hear the outside perspective of people not in the Overwatch scene, you know?